It's here! The mimic is here!
But you are the mimic.
Yeah, I know. I just, I figured I'd make you panic for a second. But it's my origin story, and I'm sure it's filled with joy, laughter, love,
Blood,
peace,
gore,
disturbing
mayhem.
trauma.
Okay, that's
small things. And we have the lovely, terrifying T to thank for looking up all my. I don't know how they got all my lore. I don't know how they did that.
They did a lot of studying.
But make sure to go check them out. Without further ado, I want to see what's the story of me.
The origin story of the Mimic is not only unsettling, but it's also kind of fascinating.
Okay, I like the fascinating part.
Withstand time and outsmart any and all who oppose
The disturbing part
With
made me a little sad.
the announcement of Five Nights at Freddy's Secret of the Mimic, I wanted to talk about the origin story of the character and what direction this new game might go. So let's explore the complete disturbing story.
No, not disturbing. Just a complete, just complete story. Just complete story. We don't need a disturbing part.
You saved me. You saved me. Gregory?
It's a dino.
I'm Gregory.
It's a dino.
You're not Gregory. What are you?
The Mimic is one of the main antagonists of the Tales from the Pizza Place.
Ew, that metal box. Ew. Ew.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna remember like 90% of. Hey, it's Tiger Rock.
Oh yeah, it's Tiger Rock. I was more looking at the doll that was like all melty.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. That was disturbing. It's kind of disturbing. I guess the guy isn't wrong about the disturbing part. I guess.
Yeah.
Hey, look, I was a New York Times bestseller.
Hey.
Well, I mean, I wasn't the author, but close enough.
But the first time we get to see this character in action was in the FNAF Security Breach Ruin DLC. Throughout the story, it was able to mimic Gregory's voice and trick Cassie into letting it free from underneath the pizza place.
I know one of those kids.
There are a few endings for this DLC, but during one, the mimic is wearing a costume that probably seemed random if you have never
I remember that suit.
Yeah,
that's a good suit. I don't remember it being that ugly though.
No, because it looks like that's been decaying for like 50 years.
Yeah, it's kind of gross looking, honestly. Ew.
But there was a reason for this, and it ties into the tragic yet disturbing backstory of this character. Around the late 1970s, there was an engineer named Edwin Murray. He was a master at his craft, being able to create anything from nothing.
That's not what it looks like.
When Edwin set his mind to something, he would do anything to achieve that goal. When Edwin was 4 years old, he found himself fascinated with machines and would take apart his mother's small appliances to see how they worked. By the time he was 8, he knew he wanted to build machines that would change people's lives.
How did he get lore on Edwin? Even I don't know half the stuff he's talking about.
Same, but it also seems like...
You think he's a Fazcorp employee?
Hey, no, Fazbear doesn't do research when they do these kind of things. They just do them.
You think he's just a fan of Edwin?
Maybe. I would say so, actually.
Little did Edwin know, one of these machines would not only change lives, but take them. As Edwin grew up, he would get married and start a business in robotic vacuum cleaners. With a newly acquired factory for his work, life was going well. So he and his wife decided to start a family. However, his wife Fiona would die giving birth to their son, David, shortly after. Life would go on, as Edwin and David continued to live in the factory. But a place filled with machine parts is not exactly safe for a child, so Edwin decided to make some changes. One in particular, a different bed. He created a wooden white tiger bed, which mimicked David's favorite toy, a plush tiger named Tiger. I bring this detail up because it's important later on.
Yeah.
Now, the complexity of Edwin's machines required countless hours of work, as well as expensive parts and tools. This, along with raising a son alone, would run Edwin's finances dry, leaving him no choice but to sell his company to Fazbear Entertainment. For the next year and a half, Edwin would build endoskeletons for the company and attach them to the costumes that Fazbear provided. Now, working on his 18th animatronic character, a bright young chick,
Whoa, wait, does that mean Edwin
made Chico?
That's crazy.
Really is.
His 4-year-old son David interrupts him. He accidentally damages the animatronic head. This would become an ongoing problem. Edwin's intense work schedule made raising David alone challenging. He realized he was unable to care for his son by himself. So Edwin pondered the idea of creating a robot that would help care for his son. This idea grew further once he saw David's bed, remembering how it mimicked his son's favorite tiger toy. So over the next 3 weeks, Edwin begins to build a robot that would care for his son. This creation was made using wiring from unused rooms, pistons from a defunct industrial washing machine, steel, spools, gears,
You're made
and
from a
springs
washing
from
machine?
a lever machine.
You know, that's actually disturbing considering I don't like water.
Yeah.
Can we replace that part inside of me?
We don't know what part of you is that, the old washing machine.
Oh.
For all we know, it could be your heart. Your heart could be a washing machine.
I don't like this story so far. This is making me sad. I don't know how I feel about this now.
Fine from what he had laying around his shop. After the body was complete, it needed a mind of its own, so he installed a computer with hardware from one of his old abandoned projects. Edwin used a combination of high-level programming language code called Pascal and generalized C code to write a code that acts as a thinking mind that learns by mimicking what it observes. This takes 22 days to complete. Once done, Edwin names his new creation Mimic, after the name of its program, Mimic 1. Upon activation, Mimic immediately begins to imitate the behaviors it witnessed from David. Over the next 2 weeks, David and Mimic spent all of their time together. David was delighted by his new friend and taught it many new childlike behaviors. Games like patty cake, how to color, how to throw a ball, and how to use movements to communicate certain things.
How to throw a ball,
like
yeah.
asking for ice cream.
Because you're so great at that.
Well, you know, I do throw things.
Yeah,
And
things,
also, we had our sign language. That was fun.
You tried to throw a baseball with Francine, and you couldn't even make it far with that.
Yeah, it's heavy. It's heavy, Freddy.
David would also hide in the mascot suits, which is something the Mimic also picked up on. This is very important, and it's something that we will see later on. Now, Mimic was learning how to be a human, and it was learning quickly. Edwin was amazed by how fast Mimic was able to learn these new behaviors, so he began tinkering with it, giving it the ability to move around smoother and keep up with David's childlike attention span. They were spending a lot of time together, and David took Mimic everywhere he went, so naturally Mimic began to mimic how David would act, like holding his favorite tiger plush toy. But Edwin did not have enough money to buy the Mimic his own toy, so David and Mimic worked together to create a new tiger plush out of lace and string. Therefore, Mimic was taking action after observing. Edwin was amazed to discover that Mimic wasn't just mimicking, it was also responding. Edwin felt
evolving
in leaving his son in Mimic's care. However, he started to notice that Mimic would begin to imitate not only positive, but negative traits as well, and this of course concerned him. An example being, Mimic would join David as he played in the costumes sent by Fazbear Entertainment and got them dirty. These costumes were important, and it seemed like Mimic did not recognize right from wrong. It didn't understand the repercussions of its actions. So that night, Edwin tinkered with the Mimic's mobility in hopes of calming David's restlessness. It couldn't join David in his childish antics if it wasn't able to fully move. However, tragedy struck, and shortly after doing this, David got hit by a van and was now gone.
Oh.
I don't like that part!
Yeah.
For the next 2 weeks, Edwin was sent into a depressive state. His world was just taken from him, and the only thing he had left was the Mimic that acted like his son. The Mimic would do things like David would do, like use David's toys and make gestures asking for things like ice cream. Seeing the Mimic behave like his son overwhelmed Edwin with anger and guilt, so he took out his anger on the Mimic by battering him with a metal rod. All of Edwin's self-hatred fueled each swing he unleashed on the Mimic. Edwin could feel his murderous thoughts pouring through his muscles and transferring through the metal into the...
Yeah, you can see where the angry side comes from.
Yep.
You know, I'll say it. Getting hit with the metal rod? Not the best.
No, I would guess not.
But you can also tell why I have a really high pain threshold.
Yeah, that's not a good thing, Jackie.
Yeah, I know.
Mimic system. While being beaten, the mimic was learning new angered behaviors. Eventually,
Like, what the
Edwin
hell?
runs out of strength,
Why am I getting
and
hit?
his anger turns to regret as he cries over the mimic and runs away, abandoning the mimic and the rest of his work. By December, his property was reverted back to Fazbear Entertainment due to a
Ew.
breach.
Why
in
is
the
your old logo
contract.
so scary
A week
looking?
before Christmas, the company sent a small team to the abandoned factory to clean up Edwin's mess. This team was tasked with finishing Edwin's projects, but they ended up repairing the building first. While doing so, they came across the remains of the mimic. Its upper half appeared to be functional, but it didn't move, so the team decided to complete it by attaching legs from an unfunctional animatronic. The mimic then came to life and mimicked the last thing it observed. It killed each member of the Fazbear team in a similar fashion to the way it was attacked.
Oh, you
But
know,
even
it's,
more-
hey, don't say it like that. Don't make me sound worse than it is.
How is it better?
Well, you know, stuff happens. And Fazbear's not a great corporation anyway, so, you know, it's fine.
gruesome.
That's a
Mimic
great way to
shoved
say
one
it,
of the
Jackie.
men
Stuff
into a
happens.
refrigerator,
I'm
locking
sorry.
him inside to perish. Another was impaled with a metal rod and hung inside a closet while hanging him from a coat hanger. These are things the mimic likely learned from watching David and Edwin use the refrigerator and closet. Remember, not only was the mimic able to mimic what it observed, but it was able to respond, leading to it acting freely. Of course, this team did not return to Fazbear Entertainment, so they sent over a second team of 3 a month later. This new team explores the dark remains of the abandoned factory, unknowingly getting locked inside. They come across the costumes of Freddy, Chica, Foxy, and Bonnie, as well as 2 bright pink and yellow-green jester costumes. Eventually, one of the team members finds a tape recorder inside a satchel. They listen to it as they continue to explore. They learn about the first team that was sent, how they got trapped inside by the door closing behind them, just like what's happening to this second team. The tape ends with a man explaining that they will be completing an advanced endoskeleton that lacks legs and isn't moving. Of course, this was the mimic, and the tape ends here because they all perished to it. But the second team does not realize this yet. They continue inside, but notice one of the jester costumes is now gone. While not thinking much about it, they investigate and
You're gonna kill them, aren't you, Jackie?
only to find the remains of the first team, finding a body in the fridge and another hanging inside a closet. All of a sudden, the mimic wearing the jester costume starts attacking them, taking one out instantly. Wearing these costumes is something Mimic learned from David, so he wears them in hopes to ambush his prey. The other 2 hide, but after doing so, they notice the jester costume is now empty. The Mimic discarded that suit, then put on a white mushroom costume. It finds the 2 hiding, grabs one, and rips him apart. The last person runs to the 3rd floor to build a weapon. Upon returning, the bodies are gone, and the mushroom costume is now empty. In a panic, he returns back to the 3rd floor, only to find a rotting grayish lion costume begin to stand up and slam him to the floor.
Is that...
The mimic rips him apart. The second team was now gone, perishing at the hands of the mimic. As you can see, Edwin unintentionally created a monster, but the mimic's reign does not stop there.
Oh, great. It doesn't stop there.
From here,
Great.
we
More
jump
info.
ahead in time to a different location. A team of 3 construction workers were tasked with cleaning and renovating the ruined remains of the old Freddy Fazbear's pizza place.
I have a genuine question, Freddie.
Yeah.
That pizza place. Holy crap, does it have some crazy scenery in there?
Yeah, it does.
It is wild.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And it's
though.
also disturbing. Your brother needs to clean that place up a bit.
That's not my brother's place.
Oh, I mean, it's close enough.
The surface level in this old pizzeria, while on top was the construction of the mega pizzaplex.
See, that
Their
place.
job included breaking down the damaged animatronic endoskeletons, aiming to turn this pizza place into a museum. While the team works, a large delivery truck arrives with a shipment of state-of-the-art animatronics. One of the workers signs for the delivery and opens the back of the truck to see the brand new animatronics. However, one of them seems out of place. This was the mimic. It looks much older and discolored. Nevertheless, they pull it out, and one of the workers takes an interest in this different endoskeleton. They drag it down into the old pizzeria in hopes to repurpose it. Now, despite not having any actual work experience as a programmer, this worker tinkers with programs and robotics all the time at home. So they hook up the mimic to their laptop and upload a cleanup protocol into its code. This code instructs the mimic to break the limbs and heads off the older animatronics and pile them up by the pizzeria's exit door.
I see how this is
going.
going.
Would do the work for them. Although, once activated, the mimic turns its attention to the workers. It scans its surroundings and just stares at them. It was as if the sight of humans caused all of the mimic's memories to come flooding back. This causes the crew to get nervous, but Mimic just turns its attention to the other endoskeletons and does the job it's programmed to do, and makes quick work of it. The team felt relieved and took their attention away from the Mimic. With their guard down, it began to attack. It had been waiting for the right moment, showing off just how smart the Mimic has become. It rips one of them apart. The other two run as more workers enter the pizzeria, curious as to what's going on. While running away, the others fall victim to the Mimic as it becomes a massacre. One of the team members slams the exit door shut and begs the cement workers to seal the door to the pizzeria before running off. From here, the Mimic is locked inside the old pizzeria, as Fazbear Entertainment tries to cover up this mess by just continuing the construction of the mega pizzaplex in hopes to
Fazbear Entertainment in your weird ways.
So that's why you had some. So that's why you had a cement door.
On, and eventually, 8 teenagers decide to explore the Freddy Fazbear Mega Pizzaplex construction site. They heard there was already new animatronics that had been brought in, so they wanted to check them out. Although one of the teens was hesitant, having heard something bad happen there not too long ago. But in teenage fashion, the group agrees that they could solve what happened if they investigate. So they go.
Oh no, they're trying to be
Scooby-Doo. Site was surrounded by a 12-foot
oh no, they're trying to be Scooby-Doo
with danger do not enter signs. Of course, this does not stop
them,
so they find a way inside. While exploring, they see a ramp that would lead to the old pizzeria entrance. But a couple feet down, they find hardened concrete blocking the path. They are determined to enter, so one of them finds a vent and discovers a chute leading down. One by one, each of them enter the old pizzeria, oblivious as to what's down there. While inside, they smell a strange odor, and it gets stronger and stronger.
They find a chute that goes down to that section, right?
Yes.
Yet they see that the only exit in or out of that place is sealed with concrete.
Is the cement door, I don't know. You know, there's one thing I've always wondered about is sometimes people just don't think before they do something.
Yeah, they didn't plan on how to get the hell out.
And I mean, I get it, you know, sometimes I see a fire extinguisher, I think about it for a second, and then I attack. So, you know, I get it.
And then I hand you the bill.
Oh, well, I mean,
stronger as they
kind of goes right back to you, but
soon enough, they come across the dismantled bodies of the previous construction workers.
Yikes.
Shocked, they initially think this is just props, but upon touching one, they discover these are real. Everyone begins to panic as this place is covered with body and metal endoskeleton parts. The teens try to leave, but because of the cement, they are trapped inside with the Mimic. Suddenly, the group hears metallic creaking and metal footsteps. Realizing they're sitting ducks, they decide to split up. One by one, the Mimic begins to gruesomely attack each teenager while wearing various costumes. But before the Mimic can get them all, some of the teens find a radio that they think they can use to call for help. Once it's working, they hear a distorted voice say that they're trapped inside with them and are behind the stage. However, the teens were skeptical as to who this was, and realized the Mimic is intercepting the signal and tried to trick them. This is something the Mimic would use in future tactics. The Mimic continues taking out each teenager. Some would even try to hide inside the empty suits in hopes the Mimic wouldn't realize that they were there. Only for the Mimic to actually crawl inside the costumes one of the teens was wearing, crushing her instantly. With only one teenager remaining, she decides to try and lure the Mimic into a spring lock jester costume in hopes to trap the Mimic inside so it gets stuck. Surprisingly, this works. The spring lock activates and the mimic gets trapped inside. Vulnerable, the teen finds the mimic's shut-off switch and deactivates it. The mimic has been shut down, so she escapes after finding one of the bathroom windows had less concrete blocking it, and breaks through. She is the sole survivor and ultimately leaves the mimic trapped inside.
Oh god,
again,
you got final
turned
girl.
off. However, we will see this exact mimic again.
Jackie,
But
have you ever heard of
before
that?
The Mimic 1 program that Edwin made was brought back to life.
So the final girl syndrome is basically there's always when a killer go after a group of teenagers or young adults, they always try to kill. You always end up killing all of them except for one.
Except for one girl
who gets the power of the plot armor. And somehow finds a way to stop you that no one else was able to figure out, and stops you.
Well, I mean, sucks for her. She lost 7 friends that day.
Pizzaplex is now completed, although
So who
it's
really
not
won?
making enough money
Sorry, I
as
probably
they
shouldn't be
hoped it
saying
would
that.
with its current
Yeah.
setup. So the head chairman of Fazbear Entertainment, Mr. Burrows, decides to introduce something new that would supposedly fix the financial issue. The plan was to downsize the creative department and instead use an automated process to create a computer program that combines various tropes and characters to come up with stories. They wouldn't have to pay employees to come up with ideas when the program would do it for free. This program was called the Storyteller. Edwin Murray, the creator of the Mimic, was now back working with Fazbear Entertainment. After his disappearance, he ran out of money and was forced to return, demanding that the company honored their buyout agreement. They still owed him money before he ran away. Instead, they decided to hire him and place him on the board of directors for the company, although most of the others did not treat Edwin with respect, especially Mr. Burrows. Once Edwin was informed about the Storyteller program, he immediately objected because he knew what could happen if a program developed a mind of its own. But Mr. Burrows ignored him and moved forward with it. Edwin was a consultant for this project, meaning he was supposed to have a say in what story elements would be programmed into the Storyteller. But he was always ignored. The only suggestion the members listened to from Edwin was the design of the program. It would live inside a massive artificial baobab tree that sits in the middle of the Pizzaplex, including wires that stretch all over the venues within the building. Although Edwin was not allowed to see inside the tree's trunk, which housed the program. Determined to find a way in, he scavenges for memos and discovers that the larger parts of the Storyteller were being transferred into the tree's trunk on a Thursday night. So Edwin sneaks through the loading dock and hides in Monty's Gator Golf. The sight of what's being carried into the tree gives Edwin flashbacks to his son David's death and triggers a panic attack. He watches as 3 men carry a large, white animatronic tiger into the tree. The same tiger his son used to play with. The next day, Edwin confronts Mr. Burrows to ask what program was being used to create the Storyteller's stories. But Mr. Burrows gives him a vague answer, so Edwin decides he needs to see the program for himself. He also notices that the animatronics that are connected to the Storyteller program start to portray kid-like behaviors. So after finally finding a way inside, Edwin enters the Storyteller tree for the first time. He witnesses a large white metal tiger head with mismatching eyes and 4 arms emerging from its neck. This gives Edwin another panic attack. He calms himself and finds a small inset in the wall with a compact computer terminal. The start screen tells him his worst fears are true. The Storyteller is running the Mimic 1 program, the same program Edwin created for the Mimic. You see, the company made VR games that guests could play while inside the Pizzaplex. Although, while making one of those games, they accidentally scanned one of Edwin's old circuit boards, which created a virus. This virus was the Mimic 1 program, and Vanessa, or Vanny, was the one that uploaded Mimic 1 to the Storyteller without any staff knowing what it really was. For the next 5 nights, Edwin continues to
Was Vanny aware of what it was?
Get it 5 nights? Get it 5 nights? Get it 5 nights? You serious at 5 nights?
Yeah.
I guess so.
Yeah, that's the question. Was Vanny already under control of Glitch Trap at this point?
Maybe?
Was this on purpose?
Maybe? I feel think by the end of this, I'm gonna have more questions than answers.
Which is just FNAF in general.
Paper and writing utensils. Using a plain black marker, Edwin covers each sheet with odd stick drawings and strange symbols, as well as the words "I'm sorry." He then sticks these papers on the interior of the tree's trunk. Edwin's past seemed to cause him to go insane. Meanwhile, Mr. Burrows notices glitching in the animatronics and thinks Edwin is to blame. The Mimic 1 program was causing the animatronics to act out. So he catches Edwin inside the storyteller and locks him in. The interior of the tree is airtight in order to maintain the optimal conditions for the storyteller's processors. So with no ventilation system, Edwin only has limited oxygen. A week later, Mr. Burrows finds Edwin's lifeless body underneath the construction paper with the only writing of "I'm sorry." It was as if Edwin was trying to talk to his son. With the door closed behind him, Mr. Burrows was now also trapped inside. It seemed karma had caught up to him. He tries his best to escape, but nothing works. Mr. Burrows then unplugs the cables from the storyteller, hoping that it would cause the attractions to malfunction and draw attention to his location. Yet, the storyteller stays on. It seems the Mimic 1 program was still alive. Running out of oxygen, Mr. Burrows ultimately falls victim to the same fate as Edwin. So, Fazbear Entertainment does what it does best. Removes the storyteller tree and cleans up the mess, hiding it from the public. But the Mimic 1 program has already infected the Glamrock animatronics.
Which makes them go loco crazy!
From here, we jump ahead in time within the Mega Pizzaplex, and the Mimic animatronic from before somehow gets turned back on. The Pizzaplex is now in a state of ruin. We are introduced to Cassie, a new character in the Security Breach storyline. At first, she seems unconnected to Freddy's, but we eventually learn that her father was actually a Faz technician.
Yeah, I know a lot about Cassie when I played the game.
In the Superstar daycare while her dad worked. One year, she hosted her birthday party at the Pizzaplex, only for nobody to show up. Although eventually Roxy and Gregory did. This would lead to a special friendship between Roxy and Cassie, as well as one with Gregory. Now, after the events of Security Breach, one day Cassie gets a random call from Gregory. He tells her that he is trapped inside the Mega Pizzaplex and needs her help escaping. So she makes her way inside and begins to explore the ruins. Along the way, she finds a Roxy talkie. This will allow her to communicate with who she thinks is Gregory. Eventually, Cassie comes across a map bot with a strange appearance. It is wearing bunny ears instead of its standard explorer hat. It calls itself Maskbot and hands Cassie a Vanny map.
Gosh, look at that mask.
It is scary looking.
It's so creepy. Also, can I state for the public, this entire game made me very angry.
Why?
Because I kept getting stuck in those stupid parts.
Yeah, dude. My brother, and it was. I could hear you from the other room going, "Whoa!"
Purple and glitchy. She is greeted by the AI Helpy, who welcomes her to the Virtual Augmented Neural Network Integrated Unit, or VANI. With the mask equipped, Cassie can solve puzzles, deactivate security nodes, and interact with glitchy objects. From here, Gregory tells Cassie she needs to deactivate security nodes using the mask. And of course, Cassie is unaware that this security system was put in place by Vanny to keep the Mimic locked underneath the facility. Now, you might have noticed Helpy will periodically contradict itself throughout the game. One version has blue eyes, while the other has orange. The blue is of course the original program designed to help keep things locked up. However, the orange eyes are when Helpy is corrupted by
I didn't even notice that when we played.
Uses Helpy to help lead Cassie to him. In Mimic fashion, he is able to corrupt
your brother
Helpy
told me
enough
this
to
information.
bypass the normal Helpy instructions. Eventually, Cassie makes her way down underneath the Pizzaplex into the original pizzeria and shuts down the security system. She uses a forklift to break down the concrete wall. This was likely the same concrete used to seal the mimic inside from many years ago. As Cassie enters expecting to see Gregory, instead, the mimic slides over a walkie-talkie and mimics Gregory's voice. This reveals that the mimic lured Cassie into the Mega Pizzaplex, only using her to help him escape while acting as Gregory the entire time. Roxy stuns the mimic, allowing Cassie to run off and try to escape. The supposedly real Gregory tells her that she has been tricked and to run. While she looks for a way out, Gregory can somehow see that the mimic is right behind her. Eventually, Cassie makes it to an elevator, and the mimic almost gets crushed by the door, losing an arm in the process. Directly after, Gregory tells Cassie over the intercom that she was never supposed to come to the Pizzaplex, how the mimic has been trapped down there for a really long time. How, like I said earlier, this security system was designed to keep the mimic hidden, but we shut it down. Then we hear static, and Gregory's tone
and then we go, bye-bye,
He tells
Cassie.
Cassie that they can't risk being followed, and apologizes. The elevator then crashes back down underneath the Pizzaplex. It's theorized that when the static occurred, this was the mimic talking to Cassie, and it is what caused the elevator to fall back down, meaning Mimic now has a path to the surface. But this wasn't the only ending for the Ruin DLC. In the super ending, when Cassie first sees the mimic, it appears wearing an old lion mascot costume. As the chase begins, you can see another bird costume right next to the forklift. But I'll come back to these costumes in a moment. During the chase,
I wonder if we'll see those in like the game coming up in a few days.
She will find open doors that will lead her to the scooping room.
Right?
This room was created by William Afton.
Repeat that?
I was saying, I'm wondering if we're gonna see those costumes in the new game coming up.
Oh, maybe. I can't spoil everything, Freddy. But maybe. Maybe not.
You don't actually know, because knowing Fazbear, they probably just wiped your memory out of the game afterwards.
Oh, right on my nose. Gross. Yeah, I don't remember much. They probably wiped a lot of stuff from me.
Doors that will lead her to the scooping room. This room was created by William Afton with a machine that would take out the endoskeleton of animatronics after they murdered and enclosed kids inside them. It would destroy all the evidence of the attacks. Cassie then runs behind the glass to activate the scooper. The room fills with smoke and the arm grabs the mimic. When the smoke clears, the mimic can be seen collapsed on the floor, meaning Cassie has supposedly defeated the mimic and put a stop to its years of torment. However,
or it could just be an empty suit.
Closely, you can see that the mimic was able to quickly slip out of the costume without us seeing, meaning this will not be the last time we see this character.
Slippery snake.
What are these mascot costumes? As I'm sure a lot of people were confused when they first saw them. Well, in Ruin, there are three. A lion costume that the mimic wears, a clown-like elephant, and a bird. Like I mentioned earlier in the video, the mimic would wear these mascot costumes to ambush its prey. This is something the mimic learned from its time with
these costumes don't look very friendly.
Tactics with the cleanup team and construction crew from before. So here in Ruin,
the
mimic is doing the same thing. It put on a costume to attack Cassie. This specific lion could be the same costume that the mimic wore during its attack on the second cleanup team, but that's doubtful. They are probably different costumes. Either way, it's awesome to see the mimic's antics in action. As of right now, that is everything we know about the mimic so far, as Ruin is the last story in the FNAF timeline that includes the mimic himself. It's also up for debate if the mimic was burn trapped in the security breach ending, but that's a theory that I don't want to dive into in this video. So where do we go from here? Well, Steel Wool Studios just announced Secret of the Mimic, which is going to be the origin story for the character, saying to see the future, sometimes you need to understand the past. But does this mean we will get to see Edwin Murray create this character? I doubt it. My first thought is that this could be a completely new story that we haven't seen yet. In the teaser trailer, the Mimic looks to be wearing a clown or jester costume while also coming out of a Jack-in-the-Box. So this implies that the Mimic will be some kind of jester in the new story. Now, we have seen the Mimic wear a jester costume before when he attacked the past victims, but this doesn't include the Jack-in-the-Box. So I don't think Secret of the Mimic is going to be about his attack on the cleanup crew. Right now, everyone is pointing out that because the Mimic is wearing a jester costume, Mimic is actually the third paper pal. This pal could be a clown
You're
or
a paper
jester,
pal?
considering its red nose and different colored arms and legs. These paper
pal? What the hell is a paper pal?
So there were these little paper mache people from FNAF 2.
Uh-huh.
And they just randomly appeared in the game sometimes in your office. People thought they were alive, honestly.
Oh, maybe. I don't know.
Paper pals are known to be the origin characters for Freddy Fazbear, the bear himself, the rabbit, and now the Mimic. Meaning Secret of the Mimic could be about FNAF Fall Fest, one of the very first iterations of Freddy's back around 1970, which is around the same time the Mimic was created. Now, I did not mention one last ending in Ruin, where Cassie runs up to a very old version of Freddy. She puts on the mask and the game ends. But this bear cutout is very similar to the imagery of FNAF Fall Fest and the old Freddy. So this ending could have been foreshadowing Secret of the Mimic and its origin of Fall Fest the entire time. However, Steelwool Studios was just at PAX West, where they had a playable demo to Secret of the Mimic. This demo gave us a ton of insight into what's going to be happening.
Oh god, you look creepy.
Unfortunately,
you look so creepy
it's
in
not
that.
really going in the direction I think a lot of people thought it would. That being said, it's going to be VR. Although I think they are still deciding on if they want to include a
sad fact,
non-VR
actually.
version or not.
Yeah.
The game is actually not gonna include the VR right off the bat. They already stated that the VR is gonna need more time to finish.
That's gonna be disturbing.
It doesn't look like this is going to be the same style of game as Security Breach and Ruin. So what happens in this demo? Well, it's set inside of a large factory and there were two levels, the manager's office and the chase. In the manager's office, you explore and find the same box from the trailer, wind it up and meet the Mimic. Or, as she's called in the game, Jackie. Eventually, Jackie chases us through the factory while attached to the box. After hiding in a vent, Jackie catches us and we both fall through. That's an extremely rough overview. I recommend checking out the videos from the people that actually played it. So what does this mean for the Mimic? Well, there are a few possibilities. This could be a completely new story. This factory that we are in could be the Fazbear Entertainment Distribution Center. This building was a warehouse for all of the Fazbear Entertainment
I wonder if we're gonna find all the versions of the
animatronic parts and costumes that got sent off to restaurants, stores, and other public
It's actually
venues.
very possible.
Keyword there was toys. Jackie is a Jack-in-the-Box toy, so this makes sense as to why she is inside of this factory. It's the distribution center, or this location could be Edwin's workshop / factory, which may be turned into the distribution center. Now, what if the company found the Mimic stuck inside the Jester costume from when it got trapped inside by the final teen from earlier? So they repurposed the Mimic by attaching it to a Jack-in-the-Box and named it Jackie. This is when Secret of the Mimic could take place. That being said, I can't wait to uncover more of the Mimic's past.
That's me.
How do you guys feel about the Mimic? And where do you think this next installment
well, I don't love the
will go?
Mimic
Let me know
personally,
your
but I
thoughts
love
in
me.
the comments below. And if you like
God.
horror game content like this, please consider subscribing. Also, if you want to support the channel more, you can become a member. Don't forget to follow my Twitter at TerrifiedT. Thanks for watching.
Thank you, Terrified T, for all the lore. Much appreciated.
Yeah, although I am left with more questions now.
Yes, and they'll all be answered very, very soon.
No, they won't be. They won't be.
What do you mean they won't be?
Let's be honest, Jackie. When has FNAF ever actually answered a question and left not one?
No, they just give a lot of answers. You know, sometimes.
They leave you with more questions, Jackie.
Okay, well, maybe this time it'll be different. It's thoughtful thinking, Freddy, okay?
Oh.
But we hope you all enjoyed watching the lore of, well, I guess me, technically. And thank you to Terrifying T for the lovely video. Make sure to go watch the original. And go subscribe. Go subscribe. All the subscribe.
Hopefully you all did enjoy. We have more questions, but we'll maybe have some of them answered with Secret of the Mimic coming out in a few days.
Yeah.
See ya!